Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. Hi, Wei Wei. Thanks for that introduction. Today we have a very poignant topic. We're talking about survival mode and where do we go from here as an industry. We know this is a really challenging time for everyone, but it's also a time for experimentation and reinvention. This is our very first virtual event here in Asia for North Star Travel Group. So in essence, we're experimenting too today. And I know many of you are doing the same across the region. So while we eagerly await the return of, say, face-to-face events, we're working with these hybrid and virtual models. And funnily enough, the technology we're using really isn't that new, but we are having to use it in new and inventive ways. And I guess what a lot of us are grappling with is how a hybrid and virtual event translates on the balance sheet. How can we create new revenue streams to not only survive this crisis, but come out of it on the other end stronger with new tools and new expertise? So I'm very, very pleased to welcome our panelists who will be joining me in this discussion today. The three of them are entrepreneurs from across the Asia Pacific region, and they actually have successfully transformed elements of their business in order to get through this crisis and reinvent, to embrace this new normal. So I'd like to welcome them all on stage with me now. We have Francis Chung from RV Worldwide. Now, Francis started the company 17 years ago with just a laptop at home in his pajamas, and he's since transformed the company into an international brand experience agency. He's based in KL. Francis, thanks for joining us. In Singapore, we have Alexi Loyer, who is the co-founder of Sharp Events, which works with a number of luxury clients across the region, doing incentive and event programs. He is an entrepreneur at heart and a fellow wine lover. So Alexi, please join me on the stage. And last but certainly not least, from Seoul, we have Song-Yi Kim, who is the COO at Chris & Partners. She too is a global business event strategist and entrepreneur and has 15 years of experience in the industry. And Chris & Partners is quite well renowned for their execution of several high-profile events, such as the Asian Leadership Conference. So, Song-Yi, please join us on stage. So wonderful. Welcome to you all. Thank you again for joining us. Now, as I mentioned, I know each of you have really had to embrace this new normal and all of the challenges that's thrown at us. But I thought it might be nice to kick off our panel by actually sharing some examples of some of the recent pivots that you've made, be it to virtual or hybrid models, and share them with our audience. I might also add, for all of you tuning in, if you do have any questions for the panelists, please do send them through via the chat function. I will be monitoring that throughout our session. But to kick off, Francis, perhaps you might like to share how RV Worldwide has pivoted during these last few months.
Yes, hello everybody, and I'm Francis. I'm from Malaysia. I'm founder and CEO of RV Worldwide. Yes. Malaysia started lockdown in March 18th, to be very precise. And obviously, not obvious to some of you from other countries, we had 2 days, really just 2 days right before the announcement of the lockdown. So I think what we did very quickly was we gathered everybody and we told all the different divisions what they have to come up with within the 2 days and then presented on the last day at work, and it took some time for us. In March itself, we didn't have, obviously, everything was in a lockdown after 18 March, and there was nothing at all. Very quickly, we have moved, because of some previous experiences in managing webinars and live streaming. So we have very quickly talked to our pharmaceutical clients primarily on live streaming, but at that point, because we couldn't get out, so it was entirely on webinars. And we kind of now term it as remote webinars. So it doesn't matter where you are, we do it remotely. So all my team were in their own homes. So we were quite lucky that all of our team has got a laptop. So that really enhances the activity of managing webinars. So webinars, I think since then, started with webinars, with 7 of them in April, and then we moved on in May, there was 11 webinars happening. And then in June, we were still in a partial lockdown, so it was 13 webinars. And then come July, August, it was webinar and live stream. So at this point in August now, it's a mixture of live streaming, webinars, and hybrid events. So that's how we quickly move on to those areas in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Yeah.
So a very, very quick pivot for you, Francis. We will delve further into, I guess, some of the unique challenges of running some of these hybrid and virtual events. But before we do, Alexi, would you share with us how Sharp Events has pivoted recently?
Sure. For us, it's also been quite, had to be quick. No choices. I think most of our business went through cancellation or postponement by January, already by January 28th, I think most of the events, because we work a lot with luxury clients. We do incentive travel, which are planned long-term in advance, and all those businesses then could not happen anymore. So we had to find solutions quickly. We worked with virtual and digital before. We started doing augmented reality already back in 2016. And obviously live streaming, as you mentioned, Lauren, just earlier, is not new technologies. However, the way to use it, to be able to create engagement with your entire audience, your 300, 500, 1,000 people or more, versus a live event before. I think a lot of people were not so familiar yet with how to do that in a very engaging, conducive way to create emotional connection. And so we went very quickly to get the whole team on board. We spent a lot of time training because when we talk about web technologies, then we talk about HTML, we talk about a lot more video production and content creation compared to what it used to be with live events. So that's also been an interesting journey to pivot very quickly and train the teams, get people on board, and then throughout the last few months, a lot of education, also on the client side, on the buyer side, because everyone heard about virtual event very quickly. People done the webinars before, many times even before COVID, but how to make that in a meaningful way, and what would be the cost attached to it compared to just a classic Zoom, I would say, was a big change for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Songy, how has Christian Partners pivoted? I know from some of our previous discussions that your agency was one of the first to actually delve into the virtual event space after pandemic outbreak. So can you share a little bit more with us?
Sure. So let me just briefly introduce what the Christian Partner is. So it's been 7 years since Partners started up and recognized one of the fastest growing young minds boutique firm in Korea, mainly focusing on business events and conferences and exhibitions, working with the media, government, and the corporates. So although Christian Partners itself, we studied very, very positive outlook on the business this year, but then we faced the most unprecedented difficulties in the business due to the COVID-19 pandemic this year. So we promptly transformed our company as a virtual hybrid event specialized expert, not only the technology, but also the planning and management capabilities that what we've been building for last 7 years. So in May, there's there's a zero physical events in Korea, I must say. But then the client that we are working together, they want to launch this webinar and also live streaming. So we launched it in the middle of May, and then there was kind of big wave to Korean event industry. Therefore, after the success of this the webinar, and then we do the big hybrid conference with the Seoul city, with the 40 cities government leaders join, and then 158 speakers from all over the world. They joined this big virtual event in early June. It was so successful. And then I think because of this success of the event in Korea, we see the market goes like very positive to try this virtual and hybrid and also like the physical event together. So I think I'm very happy to contribute in that contribution. As a result, we are now slowly back to our usual business by responding to the situation pretty rapidly than others.
Mm-hmm.
So we are also currently running our webinar studio for who's need a space for their webinars, and also planning to then is we keep equipping LED screens and more like high quality AV systems very soon. So I do see these an opportunity to pivot to virtual and hybrid as well as the physical, which will be a large part of the landscape and going forward. I think this is very positive for the planner perspective. Therefore, I'm very thrilled to share my company's experiences and my insights with many international fellows to cooperate with for women today.
Thank you, Songy, and I'm so pleased to hear that you've had such a positive response. So I'm assuming that the fact that you've been able to move so quickly and open up your virtual studio has also allowed your company to open up to potentially new clients during this period.
Yeah. So what we are doing is, because a webinar is basically is a digital base, and then for the sales perspective for the planners, we have to like minimize the like visiting and having meeting with the clients, and then like exploring new clients. So what we are doing now is focusing on the digital marketing for our company. So we are utilizing blogs and SNS channels that we have, and then try to expose like what we've done and what we can offer to the clients and all those services. And then the market is a huge, I just realized, because once we launch these blogs, I'm sorry, but this is a very Korean, but this all Korean potential clients, they're like come to us constantly. So they're like many realize that there are a lot of needs from the market. So I also learned that, there's a possibility and opportunity for us to develop in that perspective.
So really sharpening focus on that content creation of events. Alexia, I know this is something that you're quite passionate about, and I know Sharp Events has actually been tasked to manage one of the two upcoming hybrid events, and that's happening here in Singapore. For our audience members from Singapore, you will know that the government recently announced here that we will be trialling two hybrid events because our industry here hasn't yet reopened. So it's quite a huge weight that you must be carrying on your shoulders, Alexi. Can you share a little bit more about what you have planned by way of content for this particular event, and how you're managing all the different speakers that are involved?
Sure. So, thank you for that. Actually, we can name the event. It's APAC Med. So APAC Med is the Asia Pacific Medical Tech Conferences. So it's one of the two events that the Singapore Tourism Board have chosen to highlight the reopening of events with about 50 people in a room. So hybrid event with testing self-management guidelines and framework to be able to have all those people here. It's been an interesting journey indeed, because it was supposed to be a physical event, a proper exhibition with 1,000 people. Got cancelled, got brought back to live into a virtual format, and now moving and shifting thanks to the STB into a hybrid format. As Songy mentioned, likewise, we had to build internal capabilities on windscreen studio in-house, but also I think overall to recreate an interesting exhibition experience, conference experience, we have to integrate multiple technologies together. So there's one part which is the technologies, there's another part which is the content. On the content side, we have about 90 speakers now, about 60 plus sessions. So we'll have 4 different, let's call it plenary or virtual rooms across the day. but also a networking area using artificial intelligence to matchmake you with other delegates and participants. We bring in gamification to raise the customer engagement, because when you do virtual conferences or exhibition, the number one question that we got from sponsors is, how do I gonna get people to my virtual booth? Before in a live event, I can put my sales guys in the alley, grab the people coming in, start a conversation. Now I'm saying on my virtual page, how am I going to get people there? So we've been building up tools for engagement, not just classic ones, which are surveys and questions when you're doing a live session. Those ones are pretty much a given now. Most of the technology have them. But on live sessions, we have more interesting things where you can take selfies that's going to appear on the screen of everyone and turn those selfies into a logo, a brand, a number to reveal something, tag clouds, George, and whatever you can think of to create reveals for products, for numbers. So things that are going to help your participant get still engaged with what's happening, because they're going to be able to use their phone as a kind of second screen, and we're going to push them interactions to keep them attentive to the screen and the audience and what is the content being delivered throughout. And now you also have on the second side of it, when you're going to drive people on booths, indeed it could be like maybe specific one-on-one with a global leader that would attract people to come to the particular booth. You could do, so we work also on gamification so that there's things to see and find on each of the booths that brings back to a global leaderboard and to ask questions to win some prizes. So get any kind of tools available so that we try to maximize the engagement of the audience with every single part of the platform, not just coming to one session, hearing one or two thought leaders, and then popping out. So it's quite interesting. So we shifted the model of the business also on not just the live event side, which would be traditional management of an entire event or doing even the social media marketing, but being an integrator of multiple technologies, because in reality, there's a lot of players now already out there pre-COVID, but are getting more well-known in terms of virtual events, multiple platforms. I can't even count how many there are. However, there's no silver bullet. Not every one of them do everything. So you need to bring in multiple technology together, work as an IT integrator to make sure you create a seamless experience that have all the multiple touch points that are interesting. So content is one, and we have like amazing global leader at the APAC forum. We have the top leaders of Johnson & Johnson, Baxter, Siemens, whoever you name it. However, content is one thing, and it's going to attract people to sell tickets. But what's going to make them stay on the platform is really the whole user experience. Yeah. And I think that's something that hasn't changed so much from a business perspective as DMCs or even companies. You need still to think through how the user experience is going to be and how smooth it's going to be.
It's an ongoing challenge. As I mentioned earlier, I think we're all experimenting. And funnily enough, it's a lot of trial and error. But you mentioned, I guess, this idea of embedding these wow moments in the virtual space. And I think we're all very well versed in understanding how to do that at a live in-person event. And embedding that gamification, particularly when you are conducting business, is something that I think a lot of people are still playing with and really trying to convince their clients of the value needed. But Francis, I know that you had to, again, pivot your business away from live events and towards virtual. And you mentioned to me in one of our previous conversations that you've actually had to create two separate teams within your business to manage that. Of course, in Malaysia now, live events can take place, but it's still a very difficult balance, particularly when you're talking about client needs and client concerns. Can you shed a little bit of light on what that's been like?
Yeah, so it's really, until today, it's a trial and error for a lot of us in my office. Well, there are 25 of us now, full-time employees, and every one of us are still trying. Because we managed 185 events in 2019, These are all physical events. Yeah? And now this year, obviously, it has dropped significantly. But, I think all the three of us, Alexi and Songi, we will all agree green screen, hybrid, engagement activities on a live streaming like this. These are all the future of where we are heading. So it was very tough for us to go and try one by one. So it was a lot of trial and error for our team. So much so that now in Malaysia, because more or less in Malaysia we are kind of opening up. So assuming if you have got a large ballroom, a hotel has got a large ballroom of 1,000. So they probably with physical distancing, they probably allow 400, 450 people in that same ballroom as long as you have social distancing. So yeah, we are going into hybrid, so you can attend events, but then now the clients also want it to be live streamed to other places because, say for example, Malaysia, we have got East Malaysia, so maybe the East Malaysian client cannot come here, so they want to just log in and watch. So yeah, so then now I have got to have two very separate teams. One is to actually manage the face-to-face physical event that's happening in the specific venue, usually it's a hotel. Yeah. And then we have got another team that's sitting behind digitally in the same room that's managing the webinar side, the live streaming side of it. And both Alexi and me will very much agree with so many platforms, and our customers are all asking from WebEx to Teams to you name it. Zoom webinar, and then there's Zoom meeting, and then there's oh my god, the latest one that we have is a big marker. So we're trying so many different things now, and we kind of learn a lot. Say for example, we kind of now realize that if you are using a green screen, because we also have a green screen in my office, just like very much like Sony. I can still relate to you, Sony. So there's this studio that is up for rent. So when they come, if you stream it via Zoom, the quality of the picture that you see is also clear. So now we have to move to a different platform if you're using a green screen because it's very content driven. The green screen means I can make anything appear behind the screen, whether it's winter sonata or whether it's any kind of situation that you want, outer space, a stage that you're standing on. So yeah, so now we are moving to a different platform and we are still learning. So I think this learning process is going to continue pretty much throughout the year, this year, and maybe into June next year, hopefully until vaccine, I reckon. Yeah.
For both our buyers and sellers in the audience, I did want to ask, how have you seen client need changing? I mean, Songy, you mentioned that in Korea, there's a real appetite for virtual events. But I want to open it up to the floor and ask you, I mean, what are your clients looking for when they come to you and ask for a virtual event? And are they interested in hybrid, or are they waiting out the storm to relaunch their face-to-face events? Where are we headed?
So from my experience, I think it also goes to like where I build up my business model under this current situation as well. So a lot of people like actually waited until this storm gone, and then we are actually expecting that okay, May will be better, or like June will be better, so maybe September we can open up. But in Korea, the second wave just hit the whole country, and then we are like almost shut down. We're in panic now. So all these like a hybrid events with audiences will be postponed, and they suddenly change it to only the virtual because they can't have audiences in the same room. It just happened last weekend, so everything just happens like so quickly with the situation. But then there are a lot of needs from the market where they cannot deny they have to do some virtual events or hybrid with audiences and without audiences. So what we are doing is like since we experiment various types of clients, so whether have experiences on planning events or not, or they're like expecting hybrid with audiences, without audiences, or physical. A lot of quotations requests as well as webinars. So it is hard to follow up on every request in a very different like landscape from the the clients. We used to do the clients before the pandemic. So at the same time, we could analyze a couple of certain types and market demands or from the client on running webinars and online events. So therefore, we actually structured 3 pricing modules that we can actually respond to market demands right now. So one is the economies of scale modules. So this is a target for a very low budget and then small number of participants in normally closed meetings internally. So this case, like a lot of decision makers don't know much of experience on the event. So we just made a very simple webinars module. So we just apply for. It's not a big sales portion, but still, we can have like the scalable economy.
Yeah. Well, it's a way to create an additional revenue stream, right? Which is what a lot of us are grappling with right now. But I am conscious of the time, so I am going to ask you each now to wrap up and share with our audience your number 1 business survival tip, or perhaps the biggest lesson that you've learned over these last few months, in just a few words or just a few seconds. So, Betsy, I'll kick off with you.
Yeah, for the last few, it's going to be an interesting period. Probably a mix of hybrid, reopening, closing. Hopefully that's something that's going to stick. Probably fully virtual events probably not going to stick for long until the countries reopen. But hybrid events I think it's a new way that a lot of clients discovered to engage broader audience than what they used to do. So I guess it's gonna stick there, and we really look forward to build like nicer, more interesting experience online with the physical component coming back for sure.
Mm-hmm. Francis?
I have 2 words for this moving forward. First, I reckon it's progress. I always stress on this a lot. Today has to be better than yesterday. Mm-hmm. So I think progress is a very key word, even in it doesn't matter what industry you are in. I think as a human being, we need to progress. I think the second word for it is agility. We are always been in this hospitality, travel, and events industry, and it's all about agility. And I'm just very happy and blessed that we have a very good team, a very young team. A young team who knows how to kind of pivot very quickly into technology, digital. So I kind of really liked what Alexi said about IT integrator. I actually didn't think about that. I thought it was so smart of putting it that way. So now I'm going to call myself a digital integrator, which is exactly what we're doing now. I think at least until next year, March, but before we see a vaccine or something. So yeah, those are my 2 words: progress and agility.
And Tommy, your closing thoughts for lessons learned?
Yeah, so I would like to say to be ready and act fast. I think there will be a mix of with virtual and hybrid depending on the pandemic situation that I am really experiencing now. So planners like to, like us, have to be like ready and react any changes accordingly. So just be ready, but don't be afraid. That is like my last word.
Be brave and ever ready. Be flexible. I think that's our key lesson. Focus on IP integration and content management, perhaps even digital marketing. Now, I'm so pleased to see that our buyers and sellers are really keen to kick off and get our appointments going. So at this juncture, I would like to thank my panelists for joining me on stage for such a fruitful session.